Brian from the ShellBee Report, and this week we are talking about Princeton Mom. Well, not necessarily about Princeton Mom, but what she's talking about. So Princeton Mom, real name Susan Patton, recently published a book called Mary Smart. And this woman, her premise is that pretty much young women spend a lot of their time when they're in university focusing on academics. And instead of focusing on academics solely, they should be spending more time looking for mates. Because while you're in university, you're at like your physical top, like you're the most attractive that you'll probably ever be. You're the most useful that you'll ever be. And most importantly, you're among a group of men who are like-minded, like the biggest group of men that you will ever be around who are like-minded. So take that time to meet a potential mate and get married. So this is what her premise is. So Brian, do you want to start the discussion, or do you want me to get into my rant?
Get into your rant, because as I said, when we were talking about it, I don't want to get flamed. I might just play the contrarian or the devil's advocate just for some fun, just to poke a little bit, but you'll let you start this off, because obviously Susan Patton has rattled some cages all across the internet as well as in media. So yes, get it off your chest and let's get it going.
So my issue is not necessarily with what she has to say. I do agree that in university and college is probably the only time you'll be around so many eligible young men who are like-minded. I
think that's a legitimate point that she does.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that, you know, instead of focusing only on education, there's nothing wrong with, you know, meeting people and interacting with other people. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. My problem is when the onus is always put on women. Why is it always something that women need to do to find a husband, to find a relationship? Every time we turn around, we have a Steve Harvey, we have Cosmo magazine, we have Essence magazine, we have all of these things, these people, these publications, these movies, like Think Like a Man, act like a lady, think like a man, think like a man, act like a lady, whatever, telling women that we're doing something wrong and we need to change what we're doing. Whoever talks to the men and tells them what they are doing and how they need to change it, no one ever talks to them. The onus is always on the woman. The woman has to change. You need to be a size whatever. Your hair needs to look this way. You need to look this way. You need to act this way. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to do the third. What about all the young women who are in university right now who are doing all these things? Where are the young men who want to marry them? Where are these 25-year-old young men who are trying to get married straight out of school? No one talks to them. Why doesn't somebody say, you know what? Stop sowing your wild oats. Stop running around the place. When you meet a young woman that you want to settle down with her. No one talks to that person.
Well, there is a bit of I don't know where to start with this. There's a little bit of boys will be boys mentality behind some of this. I know. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that there is some of that. I did, you know, as we discussed, there's I think there's some legitimacy as far as from a business case where you can find the most, like, you know, the most suitable mate is usually through. I think a lot of stats will say through school, and the next possible place is through your workplace. Now, obviously, we are not part of that group in this case, so it's not. It's possible to find, you know, your soulmate somewhere else besides the workplace or school, but It is an interesting topic. It does, you know, and as you said before, there is a lot of bias involved on you know, how it's perceived. You know, a woman must find, you know, try to find ways to find a man. You know, to add a little more layers to this and kind of maybe even get things going a little bit more. The rationale, I believe, behind the author's point too is that obviously there's a clock, as she says, that gets ticking. That, you know, that is, you know, creates a sense of urgency from her perspective, the reason why they should be looking at this point. Not my perspective, people, from her perspective. I don't know how you feel about how she addresses that as part of the issue. I guess what she sees as the issue.
I mean, every woman on the face of this earth has heard about the biological clock. And as you get to be a certain age, all of a sudden your parts are going to dry up and fall out. And you won't be able to procreate with anyone. It's true though, this is what they make you feel, like you're old and dry before you're 35. First of all, the biggest issue that I have is that it's women's responsibility all the time to do everything when it comes to relationships. You know, it's up to the woman to find the man. It's up to the woman then to, you know, make herself available to the man. Then, you know, if he's a bit shy, then it's up to the woman to then approach the man or be approachable to the man, because God forbid a man use his, what's a nice word for balls?
Oh, you said it. It's pretty much out there now. So
use his balls and go and talk to someone. We don't talk about anything like that, like men being men and doing what they're supposed to do. And then we turn around and hear, oh, well, as a woman, you know, you have this biological clock and time is ticking and you need to meet someone. Well, how am I meeting someone? Where are all these men? Where are they? And how come they're not approaching women? There needs to be two discussions. There needs to be a discussion for the men to say, okay, you need to do something as well. And if we're going to have this discussion for women, that's always saying, well, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing the third wrong, you're doing the fourth wrong. That's why you're single. That's why you're lonely and dry. That's why you're sitting down at home watching Tyler Perry movies, because you're not doing something right.
Well, isn't there, like, could there be an argument be made that some of these like self-help books, for lack of a better term, kind of position, you know, I think they try to position it in a way saying, listen, don't try to find that bad guy. Here are some things to do to avoid that bad individual, because maybe some women made some bad moves when it comes to, you know.
Well, you know, you hear
can
about
that argument be made as well too?
Yeah, but you know what? You hear about the men who have supposedly, you know, gotten married to the gold diggers, and they have like these crazy baby mothers and all that. Why no one talking to them? Well, they made bad decisions too.
Well, I think the biggest point, I think that I guess the strongest point that you make, I think, is the fact that there's nothing that tells any guy, hey, you know what? You know, be responsible and stop being a player all over the place and stuff like that. I think what it comes down to is guys being guys mentality.
Right. And it's acceptable in this society for men to be, boys to be boys. Right, it's acceptable. But once a woman steps out of that, like once she steps out of the box that says, you know, as a woman you should do X, Y, and Z to find, keep, maintain a man, then all of a sudden you're doing everything wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of saying, you know what? As a man, when you meet a woman that you want to settle down with her. Mm-hmm. Point blank, period. As a woman, if you want to meet someone decent. Mm-hmm. Point blank, period. Not that, well, men, but we're not going to talk to them because, you know, boys are going to be boys. But you girls, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. You need to wear them false eyelashes. Make sure your nails are always done because you got to look perfect. Then you can't talk too much because you don't want to be seeming like you're bossy and critical, because, you know, men's egos are very sensitive and all this, that, and the next. Well,
is part of Susan Patton's point, as I said before, this is not me suggesting this, I'm just listening for, I'm playing devil's advocate. Is Susan Patton's point more to do with the fact of finding more balance when it comes to something? You know, I think she's looking at it from the standpoint of professional women. And
balance, I get.
You know, and I think that's the point she's making. Instead of just being all books all the time, there's an opportunity.
How many women are all books all the time?
I don't know.
When I was in university, I wasn't all books all the time. Hey, I talked to dudes. None of them married me. I was talking to them.
Don't shoot the messenger. All I said is I'm just playing devil's advocate, just kind of just have a little bit of a debate about it. As I said before, I agree with you. Obviously, we are a living example that is not yet necessary. But, you know, it does spark for some interesting discussion and conversation, as we had this over the weekend about it. And so, you know, so for Susan Patton, hopefully you're not walking down the street when my wife's around.
She's making me vex.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I think that's a good note to end it off at. We'll talk next time. You know, not you're trying to lend in any stereotypes today.
I'm not an angry black woman. Really, I'm not.
A modest black woman today.
A moderately angry black woman.
Moderately, yeah, that's it. Moderately. That's the best word to describe it. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that note.